Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on building a complete active archive repository with Spectra and StorMagic. I'm Bob Cohn, and I will be your host for today's conversation, and we've got a great conversation queued up for you. You know, it's kind of fun when we can bring the best of both worlds together for a total solution, and that's the sort of thing that we're going to be doing today. We will see from the Spectra side, 40-year long history of bringing storage solutions via tape and NAS. And then on the StorMagic side, this long-running history of being able to bring software that helps utilize the goals, the achievements we want to see, and get them to the right form of storage. So with that, we're going to kick off. I will say one housekeeping item. We want you to be a part of this conversation, even though you might have noted that you joined in listen-only mode. So there are two communication functions within Zoom meeting, which we're using today, the chat function and the Q&A function. We will not be using chat today. That's a one-way communication, and we may be pushing out an element of information or two to you during the conversation today. The Q&A feature is the one that you want to use to write in any questions you may have, and then time allowing, we will answer all of those questions at the end of the webinar. So for today's conversation, our speakers are from the StorMagic side. We have Bruce Kornfeld, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at StorMagic. And from the Spectra Logic side, we have Matt Ninesling, who is the Senior Director of Storage Management. So we've got two great individuals for you. And as we get this presentation into slideshow mode,
it wasn't advancing, so I had a little problem.
We'll be kicking it off.
Sorry.
You will never see this technical difficulty with our solutions, only with webinars. So here we go. We're on fire now. So for those of you not familiar with Spectra, we bring the storage side to this picture in both tape and NAS. And then Bruce, I'd like to have you say a few words about StorMagic and the company and what you bring to this side of the conversation.
Sure. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. Glad to be here today on our webinar. So I'd say this. So StorMagic's been around for 15 years. We just celebrated our 15th anniversary, and we've been in the storage software space forever, particularly around storage at the edge. So our flagship product over the last 15 years has been SV-SAN, which is a hyper-converged software solution to simplify storage at the edge. So basically our customers take two servers, they run our software, and they have a highly available cluster to store storage at the edge using internal server disk drives. That's basically what we've been doing for a long time. But we talk to a lot of customers around the world, and over the years we keep getting feedback that there's big data problems at the edge, in particular around small sites, distributed sites. Some of these sites could be very large as well that just have a lot of data needs. But the common denominator there is that there's a lot of influx of data and information that they're trying to store, and they're having trouble doing it. So Bob, with your permission, am I allowed to kind of kick right in here?
Yeah, please do.
All right. So yeah, this is from talking to our customers about data needs, and there's a massive explosion, and the folks on the call here are probably living and breathing this today, is there's all sorts of new applications and new reasons for data to be stored at lots of locations, whether you're in a healthcare environment with imaging and medical records, or a retail environment with point of sale systems and video surveillance. But one thing that we're noticing is that there's more and more usage of video and photography and images that just take up a lot of storage space. So those costs can get really, really expensive when you're talking about these sites that are just trying to figure out, generating a lot of data. It's not just database and text files, it's big honking video files. What do we do with those these days? And that's generated a lot of problems in the industry. So there's more and more digital assets being generated, like I said, videos and images and audio. How do we store all of that? We also hear that retention requirements are going through the roof. It used to be if you're running a, let's say, video surveillance environment, maybe you'd keep 7 days online or on the video server, maybe 30, because you couldn't afford to keep 90 days or 6 months. But nowadays, retention requirements are growing. Some organizations need to keep things for a year, 5 years, and there are some government entities that need to keep video forever. And that can be really, really expensive when you're using today's systems. There's compliance and legal reasons for keeping video longer. One big problem we're going to talk about here today is how do you find all of this stuff? There's massive amounts of data distributed all over the place. How do you go find what you need? Downtime, cost, all the typical issues, but the big common denominator is about massive amounts of data, particularly around video. So we kept hearing this, and we went out and we acquired a company called Celeritech. We announced this earlier this year. I'm not going to get the month right, but earlier this year, we acquired an established company in this space they had developed software for managing video. So think of StorMagic as we're a software company in the storage space, and now we have more software that enables the management of these large files, but we don't do anything with hardware. And that's why this is a great partnership between us and Spectra Logic, is they kind of complete the puzzle here of bringing the great hardware solution to what we're going to talk about today. So these are the problems that we've heard about. The product name is ARQvault. So we bought this company a bunch of months ago. We've repackaged, rebranded, we've built new features, we've really rounded out the software. We now call it ARQvault. And what it is, it's the first active intelligent repository. And I'll explain what that all means here in a few minutes, but the concept is that we're able to keep all of your data active and available at all times, but also keeping your costs really, really low. And the way we do that is through tiering. So we're able to ingest all types of video, images. It doesn't matter what the content is. We can import anything that you've got, and we can automatically tier it to different classes of storage to save you money along the way, whether that's disk or tape or optical or cloud. And we'll talk about that here in a second. The data is also intelligent. Because of the way our software is designed, we know what is there, we know where to put it, and we can help you find it really fast. I'm going to talk all about that here in a second. And it's a repository, which means it's just a collection of vaults. And I'm going to show you that here in a second. But because of the way that we manage your data and we can tier it to the lowest cost tier possible, we can save you in the neighborhood of 50% on your storage costs. And that's the exciting thing that we have to talk about here today. So I wanted to quickly talk about the architecture so you take a quick look at it. So what we're talking about here is we allow you to ingest any type of image, video, data file that you need. It comes into the ARQvault system, and it's a collection of vaults. So these can be at different sites. You can have multiple vaults at the same site as the picture shows here, but it's really designed for distributed computing. So you can have 2 sites, you can have 1,000 sites or more, and we would enable you to build these vaults at every site. And the magic here, if you will, is that each site would have a server, a video server, let's say, to ingest all the data, but then for the tiering, each vault would either have a NAS or a SAN or a tape library or maybe a connection to the cloud. Each vault can have a different type of storage available. And ARQvault is intelligent enough to know when it's time to move data, we move it to the right vault at the right time, depending on the policy that you set. So if it's data that you probably don't need to access for a long time, we may stick it in the cloud, or maybe it goes on a tape library. So all of that is set by the user, but it's all automated. So you don't have to think about it. Your data just gets stored, and it can potentially even be stored forever. And that's kind of where this comes in. So ARQvault is about gathering, storing, and finding your data forever. Most of you don't need to keep data forever, but the concept that we can enable that is pretty interesting. So you can either store it forever, or we can set policies to say, okay, 2.5 years from now, this data needs to be purged completely in every location. We don't care where it is, from the cloud, from tape, from optical, from disk drives, but 2.5 years is the deadline for this data, and then get rid of it. And we can help you do that. That's what our software does. So we can gather data anywhere. So any kind of digital asset. We are completely hardware agnostic. So on the server side, for video servers, we don't care what you use. As long as it meets our specs to run our software, obviously, but we're very open on the server side. And then any kind of storage device that you want to use. And today, obviously, we're talking about our partnership with Spectra that has the line of network attached storage and tape libraries that I'm sure you all know and love. And we're going to talk about how those integrate there. We enable you to store your data forever if you need to. So we optimize your performance, we lower your costs significantly, we keep everything secure along the way. And really the super interesting thing here that's very differentiated is we can find any data really fast. So even if you have let's just make an example here, if you have a 30-second video clip of something that's really important, but it happens to be sitting on a Spectra library in vault number 632, 3 years from now, if you need to go find that 30-second clip, you can just use our search tool and we will find it instantly. And you decide if you want to play that back from that tape library, or we probably can find that also on disk somewhere as a low-res proxy, and you can play it instantly. So lots of options, but the key there is that we can find any video clip instantly, and then the operator makes a decision on where they play it from. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. So gather anywhere, store forever, find it fast. So in the world of gathering anywhere, literally, we integrate with any video system, any camera. We support over 4,000 different cameras that you may be using, so we can import video that way. We have our own VMS, so if you're in the market for a full function VMS, video management system, we have our own, but we also can integrate with your existing VMS. There are a handful of well-known brands that we currently integrate with, and if you have others, we can have a conversation about doing some custom work, but we can integrate with your VMS. We have our own if you want it, but it's open system completely. So we don't care what the hardware is below it. So we can store data on SAN and NAS and flash disk, optical. The hardware medium that the data goes to doesn't really matter to us. And you can expand this system very, very easily. Whether you add sites, you add vaults, you can add NAS, you can add disks, completely open, completely flexible. In the world of storing forever, here's where it gets really interesting in terms of costs. So in general, in the digital asset space, particularly with video, this is what you're looking at. And I assume many of you on this call are in this world where if you want to store more and more video, if you need longer retention, typically you just buy more disk. That's typically what you have to do because today's video systems aren't typically set up this way. It's if you want to store for 90 days instead of 30, buy more disk. It gets really, really expensive. In our world, we say tier it. So you can use disk for the video server. You can use disk for one of the vaults if you want to do SAN or NAS. But then we can also move data out to tape. We can move data out to optical or to cloud. And I think now is probably as good a time as any to explain this in a little bit more detail. So the way it works is when your video comes into the video server, we will obviously bring in the original file, high-res file is going to be sitting there. But as it ages, and this is set by policy by you, as it ages, we can make a decision, say, okay, it's been 30 days. It's time to move this high res off of the video server because it's not needed there anymore. You're probably not going to need it. So let's move it out. And that's where we start moving the high res data out to NAS or SAN. Maybe it sits there for a month or 2 or 3 or 4. And then eventually we say, you know what, it hasn't been used. Let's pop it out to something even less expensive, out to a Spectra tape library, if you will. But the key is, though, we keep a low-res proxy on the video server always. So the high-res moves, but you always have a low-res version available, which is approximately 8 to 10% of the file size of the original. So your video server will always have a low-res proxy available. So when you do that searching, you can either take a look at the low-res proxy instantly, or you can wait 45 seconds, a minute and a half, however long it takes to get the tape, put it in a drive and go read it, right? So you can wait, or you can you can wait for the high res, or you can go look at the low res instantly. And this is how we save the money. This is how we save you that 50%, because you no longer have to build these massive disk systems to store video for a long time. The way that the system is architected, we have thought this through. We have a lot of government customers. So we've got the security piece well architected in the system. There's 3 levels of security. It's been hardened. It's been proven by government agencies. So we can have a longer conversation about that if people are interested, but lots of ways to make sure that your data is protected and that the wrong people don't have access to the data at any point in time. I will mention that we do have the ability for a complete audit trail. So we keep track of any access to a file, who's looked at it, who's opened it, who's tried to look at it, where does it live, where has it been. So there's a complete audit trail. So if there's ever a legal action where you need to go prove in a court of law who's had access to this file, we absolutely can deliver that for those instances. Super easy to manage, one pane of glass for management. You can manage all of the vaults from one place. You can do your searching. You would do your searching from one location. So when you search, you're searching all of the vaults all at the same time. So for that example I gave, that 30-second video clip, maybe there's a low res in Vault 1, there's a high res version on a tape drive, and there's a high res version in the cloud. The search would be instant because we have a parallel searching capability, and we would get results that say low res over here, high res there, which one do you want to look at? So instant searching, even in the cloud, and I've gotten this question before, we can even do instant searching for data that's in Glacier. We don't have to download it to search it. You don't have to reconstitute to search it. We know where the video data is, and we have a lot of metadata associated with it to enable this searching. And here's a little bit more about how we do the finding fast or the intelligent search. So I already mentioned parallel searching, this distributed database approach, the rich metadata, either that was entered by operators. So another example in the digital evidence management space for law enforcement, body cams, let's say, if the officer were to type information at the end of the day about video that they took on their body cam, that would stay with that video forever. Or we integrate with third-party analytics products just as well. So if you use analytics engines with us, any data that an analytics package pops on top, we will keep that metadata forever. So our search engine is a big differentiator for how we do things. You don't have to do a restore from tape. You don't have to reconstitute data. We keep track of all the metadata associated with all the video, no matter where it is, instantly search and find the results. So this is how we go to market around our solutions. So we, like I mentioned today, we have video surveillance is one of the areas that we play in. Like I said, we have our own VMS product if you're in the market for that. We also connect with existing VMSs. And in the world of law enforcement or even transportation systems with digital evidence management, we have a few different modules that we have available that you can purchase individually. So whether you want to just ingest files, whether this is mugshots or fingerprints, in-car video, interview rooms, and also the body cam. So this encompasses our digital evidence management solution. And for media and entertainment, it's simply this file ingest module. So we'd be able to manage those massive digital video files for a media entertainment workflow by using our file ingest capability. And of course, we have new stuff coming, so stay tuned. I think with that, I think I'm ready to turn this over to Mr. Matt to talk about how Spectra Logic plays right into what we've been talking about with their NAS and their tape library solutions.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. So if we look at, that ARQvault workflow and we then go, what does Spectra Logic look like? How does it fit in there? And really what that is we have a full line of both disk NAS products as well as a whole line of tape library products. So if you overlay that on top of, that workflow, we see our Spectra NAS disk storage and our Spectra tape storage. And those fit perfectly into what Bruce talked about in terms of that tiering architecture that ARQvault has, and being able to keep that data for very long periods of time. So first, let's talk about BlackPearl Network Attached Storage, or BlackPearl NAS. And BlackPearl NAS was designed to be, a very easy to deploy, scalable system that would let you offload a lot of that data from the primary storage. So like Bruce had talked about, historically, you just add more flash, you add more disk to that primary storage piece, and that gets very expensive. And now that you're having to keep this data for very long periods of time, possibly forever in some instances, you really need a better way to do that. So if you want to continue to keep that data, all that video data on disk products, you can add something like a BlackPearl NAS, and that gives you very robust, enterprise grade disk storage at a much lower cost. So you can offload it from that tier 1 storage and still have very fast access time, all the features that you need to be able to use that data very quickly. And it's also, there's, many layers of data protection that we add to BlackPearl NAS. So that's one of the things we want to make sure that data is always there and always available. So we have parity protection. We verify checksums on every access of the data. If we do ever encounter an error on a read, we automatically rebuild from parity. We have built-in snapshots and replication if you want to keep, an immutable copy that could be protected. And we do copy on writes. And we do all of that for just pennies a gigabyte. So it's not tier 1 storage. It's not something where, you have to go and spend huge amounts of capital money to add additional storage. And you can scale this all the way up to 16 petabytes in a single rack as you grow over time. And that's just with the current hardware. As higher capacity disks come out, new servers, that'll get much larger in the future as well. The other piece that we built into BlackPearl NAS was we wanted to make it very easy to manage. So it has a simple GUI interface. You can take a system that's in a box on a data center floor and have it up and running in production in 30 minutes or less. So, easy to deploy, easy to scale if you ever need to add additional, scale out, NAS products with it. And it's very easy to manage. So if you look at the GUI that's built into BlackPearl NAS, you can go in, you can see how your storage is being used. You can easily change, which pools or which volumes have how much data associated, how much storage associated with them. You can use things like thin provisioning to change that capacity management almost instantly over time if some group needs more, or if some, a system needs more, based on the physical capacity of the underlying disk storage that you have implemented. And then the other piece that we offer is our full line of tape libraries. So Spectra Logic has been, designing, building, supporting, manufacturing tape systems for almost 30 years now. So we have a lot of history in this space. We actually just finished completing all of our LTO9 certifications with ARQvault. So that's all ready to go. As soon as LTO9 is coming out next month, we should be able to, deploy that as soon as anyone needs it. And with our tape libraries, we have, a full line of tape systems. You can start out with a single 6U module with the Spectra stack, and you could grow all the way into a 45 frame Tfinity, where you have over an exabyte of native capacity in a single system, and anywhere in between. So kind of the point here is that, whether you want to use LTO, you want to use enterprise tape, you want to migrate off of old, Oracle T10K tape, Spectra Logic has a solution for you. And it scales in any size that you need in that kind of space. If we look at ARQvault, I think that Spectra Stack actually fits really well into that workflow from a tape perspective. So Spectra Stack was, again, made to be very simple, easy to use, easy to deploy, starting with a minimal amount of capital investment. So you can start with a Spectra Stack at under $10,000, and then you can grow that up until, a full rack of expansion modules as your data grows over time, but you don't have to incur all that expense on day one. So it gives you a really easy way to, start with tape and grow it into a large, archive as time goes on. We support many, all the different generations of LTO tape drives. You can mix full height and half height tape drives in a Spectra stack. And we have some really cool options like migration paths, where you can actually take your tape drives from an older legacy tape system and move them into the Spectra stack to keep using those capital assets that you already have, and realize the benefits of them for a longer period of time while you move into a much more modern tape system. And then along with this, you get air gap, which is, part of how tape has always been portrayed, but it means a lot more now that we're seeing so many more, ransomware attacks, all these cyber threats out there. By putting your data on tape and storing it in a tape library or exporting it out of the tape system, that data is safe. There's no way to hack into it, to get to it, to corrupt it or encrypt it. You'll always have access to that data, and you'll never have to worry about losing it if a malicious entity attacks it. So if you look at the Spectra Stack system, it starts out with 10 slots. Each one of these 6U modules holds up to 80 slots, and you can have up to 7 of them in a 42U or 42U standard 19-inch rack. So that's up to 560 slots. With LTO9, we're now over 10 petabytes in a single Spectra Stack system. So that's a lot of storage capacity in a standard rack mount kind of environment. And that'll scale up to that as needed over time. It was designed to be installable. You can install an initial system in under an hour. You can add expansion chassis in under half an hour. You can actually service these libraries yourself. So we'll sell service editions like assisted self-maintenance, ASM, which gives you the ability to actually have spare parts on site. And then if you ever have a tape drive or a robot that has a problem, you can swap it out yourself in under 5 minutes and really never incur any downtime if there is ever a fault in that tape system. It's all managed through a GUI interface, either on the front LCD or remotely. And it makes it very easy to go in and look at the system, see how it's working, change configurations, or use any of those built-in features. So even with the Spectra Stack, it has that full suite of Spectra software features like media lifecycle management to help track the health of your tapes. It has a built-in encryption key manager, and then all the other diagnostics that go along with managing that tape system. So all that's built in. It's all, you get to use it all as long as you buy the tape library. There's no additional service fees or servers or anything like that. And it fits right into that ARQvault kind of archive solution. So if you look at that as a solution, not just as different products out there, you can use ARQvault. It manages and collects all that data. It keeps that metadata, and it makes it very easy to use, find, access. And you put it on Spectra storage for very robust enterprise storage at a much lower cost point than what you had previously with any of that tier 1 disk. And you have a really good long-term retention and ease of use for all that video storage that you need. Like Bruce said, that could reduce your overall storage costs by 50%. That's a really big number. You can still access those low-res copies all the time, even if it's out on tape. So if you do need the high-res copy, it might be 5 minutes to pull it off of a tape drive, but you can be looking at the low-res copy pretty much instantly. So very good long-term solution to keep that data almost forever if you need to. Bruce, anything to add to this?
No, I think you nailed it. We're excited about this because we have a lot of customers that don't think this way always. They just think they're in the world of, okay, I need video and I need disk. And this partnership between us, I think is bringing a lot of value here in that now they have a software solution that allows them to manage the video in a way they hadn't been able to do before. They can search it without having to do a restore from backup that a lot of video systems require, and now they have low-cost NAS and tape options to go with it. I can't think of anything better.
Yeah, and like I said, we've fully qualified all these. We've tested them in our ISD labs together, so these are ready to deploy. There's nothing that we need to go check out or look at, and that's with the very latest versions of all these products as well. So we're here to help. How can we help you? How can we get you started? What do you need? We can schedule live demos, both of the StorMagic ARQvault products as well as the taped or BlackPearl systems. Obviously, we can get you quotes on what these things look like from a cost perspective. StorMagic, actually, you can go download a free copy of ARQvault to play with and see how it works, which is a great way to just go, kick the tires and see how this would fit into your environment. And then, please, reach out to us for any kind of questions, anything that you might need. With that, Bob, is there any questions come in?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we've already had quite a few come in, but please continue to write those in and we will take them. We've got plenty of time left. The first one, and this came on relatively early, Bruce, it says, moving data is set by the user. This was when you were talking about the policies where you can decide what vault it's going to go to. It says, can that be changed after the fact, i.e. we're contemplating adding a tape vault? How would previously archived data be moved from disk to tape? Did you follow all of that?
So I think they're saying they already have a tape vault.
Nope. It looks like this, that they've got archived data to disk and they would like to move it to tape.
Okay.
Can that be done after the fact?
Yes. Yeah. So there's the basic way that we would do that is we would use that file ingest module that I mentioned earlier. So we would ingest data from an existing source, no matter what it is, and that would be ingested. And we could set a policy to quickly move it from being ingested to tape. So the answer is yes, we can absolutely do that. We can manage existing archive data into the ARQvault system.
Okay, great. Next question. Where does the search database reside and is it backed up? So you talked about the searchable database. Where does that physically reside in the system and how is it protected, I guess?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's a truly distributed database. So no one node in the system has all of it. So each vault has the information about what data it owns, right? So if they're like, I forget the numbers I used, but the example of vault number 637, that's NAS, let's say, that database, that portion of the distributed database knows all of the files and data, all of the objects. One thing I didn't mention is that on the back end of our system of ARQvault, we're dealing with objects, but that's a technical detail we can talk about later if anyone wants to know. But each vault knows what objects it has in its own vault. It has all of the associated metadata, all of the access control information there. So yes, and it resides in multiple places. It's a small amount of data, right? This database fits in disk. So it's in multiple places. It's in disk. We also back it up to whatever media is local, whether it's tape or NAS. There's always another copy of each instance of the database. So it's a truly distributed database. It's backed up in multiple locations. We've thought through all of those potential downsides. If a vault is offline for some reason and there's a search, the worst case scenario is during that time when that vault is down, that data wouldn't be available from that vault. But in our system, there's always another location, right? Like I mentioned, if you do a search, we'd say low res is available here. We probably say high res isn't available because that vault is down. So multiple instances of data, and the database is protected in multiple ways. But if a vault is down, it's not going to bring the whole search down. That vault's data would just not be available during that downtime.
Okay, great. Another database question. This actually came in from a different person, but that question sets us up well for this one. Can data be segmented? And they say specifically, so person A cannot search, retrieve, or see files from person B.
Yeah, I kind of glossed over when I talked about security, and access control is one of the areas that we specialize in. So the way that our user interface is set up is that it's a very robust system for which users have access to what data. And typically there would probably be one admin that has site access to everything, but if you wanted different departments to only have access to their data, that can absolutely be taken care of with our access control.
Okay, great. Next question, and we're down to about 2 here, but please continue to write in if you have more. Matt, I believe this one's for you. It says you mentioned 10 petabytes in the tape library with LTO9. What capacity is that per tape? So I think they're asking, what's the capacity of an LTO9 tape?
Yep, LTO9 is going to release with 18 terabytes per tape. So that's 560 slots at 18 terabytes per tape. Gets you a little over 10 petabytes in a 560 slot full rack of Spectra stack.
Okay, great. And another question related to that, and I think you covered this, but let's mention it again since there was a question on it. What's the minimum configuration for the tape library?
For the Spectra stack, the minimum config is a 6U base module, and that has up to 80 slots. You can license it with only 10 slots as a very starting point, and then license additional slots as needed.
Okay. And final question that has come in so far, but again, continue to ask. It says, given the cost advantage of tape and the ability to find data anywhere, they used air quotes, so they're not quite trusting you yet, Bruce. What use case do you see for NAS versus tape for archive, or people using both? So I think we both work on this from both sides of the organizations. So why don't each of you comment on that? Or
yeah, I can jump in. I would say there are going to be some organizations that aren't currently used to using tape. So that's why we support any media, right? So if a customer says, we don't use tape and we'd prefer low cost NAS, great, have at it. And then I'll let Matt then talk about the benefits of moving data from NAS to tape for longer term storage. How's that?
Sounds good. And I think some of it comes down to, Bruce, like you said, what they're used to or what they've used. Also, it's maybe a capacity thing too. As you grow in capacity, you may want deeper tiers of storage. So if you only have say a petabyte of information you're storing, you might just want to keep it on disk. It might be easier, you have faster access times, or you might want 2 copies, which is a lot of times what we see in many different solutions, especially in those M&E environments where you want a copy on disk and you want a copy on tape for that long-term, retention, long-term archive. And you might expire it off of disk after a couple years, but keep it on tape almost forever at that point.
Right. The other thing I'll mention, I was just thinking, I'm sitting here thinking this through, is also another thing we didn't mention here is that you could also, some of you are used to having offline vaults. I think you used the term air gap maybe, right? To take tapes literally out of the library and store them on a shelf, store them at Iron Mountain or wherever. The cool thing about our system is it doesn't matter to us. It's still available and searchable. So think about that. Searching a tape that's sitting in a bunker somewhere in a mountain, right? And of course, we're not searching the actual media, but we have all the metadata. So we'll still be able to search and find that 30-second video clip, but maybe the answer comes back, please go to your vault, grab tape number 632, put it in a tape drive somewhere, and we'll go get that video for you. So even if the tape is offline, we can still search and tell the operator where that video is.
And if that tape were sitting in an evidence room or an evidence vault versus Iron Mountain, no difference.
Correct.
I mean,
doesn't matter where it is.
Right? You're searching the database and that tells us where to find it. Okay, 2 more quick questions. I'll read them at the same time. Do you have ARQvault customers in the UK, Europe, and Middle East? And the same person is asking, what other VMs do you integrate with? Milestone, Genetec, Honeywell, etc.
Okay. Milestone for sure. I'm not 100% sure about Genetec, but I do know that Milestone is our biggest partner in terms of connecting to a third-party VMS. And yes, we do have customers in Europe in particular. I believe we have a large one in the Middle East, but feel free to reach out to our sales team and they'll give you all those details. Okay,
great. And on the location side, Matt, we've I know, but I'll let you answer. How about our worldwide representation with solutions?
Yep. We have both BlackPearl NAS and tape solutions all over the world. So many installs in Middle East, Europe, UK of both of those products.
Okay, great. And before I let everyone go, if you look in the chat box, you will see we have dropped, it looks like the joint solution brief for StorMagic and Spectra Solutions. So make sure you check out that and download that. We'll give you more information. And of course, we've got the websites listed here. If you need any more information, if you have any questions after this, we will also make the recording available after today's webinar. So feel free to share that with anyone you think might benefit from it. I want to thank you, Bruce Kornfeld, for joining us. Thank you, Matt Nimesling, for joining us. And thank all of you for joining us. A great way to kick off a day and spend a few minutes talking about some solutions that we think can really do some good things out there. So thank you, everyone, and we'll be talking to you next time.
Thanks all.